Welcome everybody to the Survivor Bros podcast. I am Brennan, joined of course by my brother Tanner. And boy, is it good to be back. We just got done watching the premiere of Survivor 44. What a fun premiere it is. And how fun is it to be back in Survivor mode? Tanner, how are you doing? What did you think of this premiere of Survivor?
I'm doing really well, Brennan. Thanks for having me on once again. Like you said, we are back in survivor mode, back in podcasting mode. It is so fun to be back with such a great opening to a season that was the premiere of season 44. I can't believe we're so far into Survivor and it's still providing new ways to be fresh and entertaining. I mean, that birdcage idol twist, that was something I feel like that was every Survivor fanfic creator's dream. Like we all want to see the different types of drama that can come out of that, and we already had an interesting resolution to that in just this first episode. We had medical drama. We had a blindside as historic first tribal council. We'll get into that crazy tribal, but it really was one for the books. And so, yeah, I'm just so excited to be here with you talking about. It's been such a long time since we podcast, but this was a really great episode to get back into it. And this is one that I think hopefully some of our friends who don't watch Survivor can actually watch this one and start to get into the show more because I think really if anyone hadn't watched Survivor before, they could jump into this episode and be hooked instantly.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, it was such a great premiere. It really was so fun. Like you said, all the stuff we got, so many interesting, unique things happen. And yeah, you're right. I think there could be a good amount of new Survivor fans that are introduced to the show from this new season because, I mean, if I was introduced to this season so far, I loved the episode, and I was watching the episode with my roommate actually, and so he's a bit of a Survivor fan, but he hasn't really been keeping up much. But he really enjoyed it too. He thought it was really fun, and yeah, I think we've got a really fun season ahead of us. The cast looks great so far. I don't know about you, um, but then we got the cast, we've got the whole season as a whole, the theme looking good, looking good. I think it's going to be a really great time. Um, but real quick before we get into the premiere of 44, do you want to talk a little bit about Survivor 43? So for those of you scoring at home, it has been, I don't know, a couple months since we podcasted. Uh, we did say we were going to do a final podcast for 43, the finale. We just never ended up getting around to it. We got really busy. A lot of things came up. But we are still going to make some content about that. I think we're going to do a retrospective on as a whole of season 43. So look forward to that in the future. Um, but yeah, for now, it's good to be back talking about Survivor 44. So, Tanner, let's get right into it. Survivor 44, we start off an unprecedented way to start off the Survivor season with Carolyn's blooper scene. What did you think of that? I just want to first off, I would say I love Carolyn every second of her on screen. I just, oh my God, I love it so much. But how did you think of them starting off the season like that?
Yeah, so first of all, I also love Carolyn. I'm literally obsessed with her. I make Carolyn stand until the very end. She is definitely not for everyone, but she is for me. Like, I'm not gonna deny that. She is just the character that I love to watch. I love Nora and Island of the Idols. I love characters like that. She's so funny. She's so authentically Carolyn. She's just always out here commenting all these crazy things. I can't wait to see her further on in the season, especially as the cast winds down and we get even more of her. She's going to be so funny having comments on everything. But yeah, this was a super interesting way to start the season. It was unprecedented, you know. Normally we do have castaways giving confessionals, but to have the producer, talking to us and not just to them. Of course, we know that they do have these interviews where they're always talking to producers behind the camera on the island, but to have that shown to us was pretty weird. And honestly, I did like it. I thought that, Survivor's been doing so much in this new era to try to introduce people and reintroduce people to the show, sort of build a framework from the show from the ground up. And I thought this was a very unique way to sort of started out by, giving us a basic look into a character who, of course, is someone like Carolyn who's going to be really interesting, but just showing us this player on the show first getting onto the island, that raw excitement that they all have, not just Carolyn, but everyone out there. This raw excitement, just like, what am I gonna do? It's crazy. It's Survivor.
Yep.
Like I'm out here, I want to touch everything. I want to do everything.
I want to
And
poop in the ocean.
yeah, yeah. And I thought, yeah, man, was super great too. It was just very human, and for a show that's all about people's stories and people from all walks of life coming together to survive on this island to do all this stuff, I thought it was just a very nice human moment to start us off with, and it definitely got the hype going for me. Like, oh my god, we're finally out here. It's been a while. We've got a brand new cast to explore. Like, the excitement is in the air. Here we go. Just getting straight into it.
Yeah, definitely. And I like they did when they did that thing where they cut everybody's like sentences together. They're like, "Oh my God!"
Hmm.
Like it cuts to Matt's like, "Oh crap!" Like I'm finally here, and they're all so excited. And Bruce's like, "Let's go!" Um, but yeah, going back to that Carolyn thing, the not for everyone. Yeah, I don't think my roommate is the biggest fan of Carolyn. He's like, "How did this person get on Survivor?" But yeah, I am definitely in your camp. I eat up everything she has to say. Her facial expressions, her hand movements, her
Yeah, I
everything.
mean, she could be an actor. Like her physical comedy is just golden.
Yeah, she reminds me of Dee from It's Always Sunny.
Yeah.
But
Wow, what a
yes,
great comparison.
we do get straight into the season with this epic challenge. And oh man, what a heartbreaker for Bruce. Just first challenge going straight into it head first. But we do get the sick slow mo and the very intense music. That's another thing this season. There's the music has been really intense and great so far. I really liked it. Like during the medical stuff with Bruce and then the stuff with the bird cage and all that. I think it's been really cool. But yeah, we get that slow mo with the mud and the face and everything. But what did you think of the challenge and Bruce going down?
Dude, that slow-mo was just straight up hard to watch. I mean,
Uh,
God, it was like you hear the cracking sound, and then you see it all zoomed in with the blood just pouring out, all thick and gross. Just that bright red color is just, ugh, ugh, I do not want to see that. And you imagine the pain that he's going through, and it's a really tough way to open up with this first challenge, but it adds that epic drama, and we had that crazy moment with Jeff saying, "Everybody stop." And I thought that was really cool, at least for the cameras and for the audience in that moment. But just imagining how scary it must have been to be out there,
yeah.
it's tough. But I also want to talk about the fact that Jeff did stop the challenge for this medical emergency, which of course was very frightening for Bruce in that moment. But it was somewhat unprecedented for Jeff to actually call this and to force everyone to stop just for medical to look at it. I actually I went back and I looked at Survivor Call Wrong, the episode where Caleb was medevaced. And if you remember, actually before Caleb even wins the challenge and shows signs himself of heat stroke, you see Debbie go down
Mhm.
first, and that happens during the challenge while
Yep.
everyone is still playing. So we have medical come out and look at her and say, are you all right? Help her through it. You got like the water on her and everything. And that you see people in the background still digging. So that challenge is still ongoing. And I think that that actually added a little bit more drama to that moment. And that's something that we could have benefited from in this season, even though it was pretty epic to have Jeff stop the challenge, especially when we move forward to the Branton incident later in this same episode. I can't believe we had multiple medical incidents in this same episode.
Yep.
But moving on to that, that was another time when Jeff called it, I think, a bit prematurely. He really did not have to do it in that moment because, as we saw, Brandon just needed to stop and slow down because he was exerting himself so much. And once he was able to sit down and have some shade, he was a lot better. So I think that was more of an instance where the tribe could have had more authority over that. This is Survivor. This is a game where people are meant to be in extremely grueling conditions where they are competing in challenges that leave them extremely drained. And so that could just be a moment where the tribe says, "Hey, Brandon, chill out. Let's not overexert yourself," and have them be responsible for keeping him healthy and okay. I understand that, it's a concern on production's part to have the cast be healthy, of course, but I felt like it was a bit premature of production to step into that extent the way they did.
Yeah, and you talk about Survivor being about like physically draining these people. Another thing that's interesting about that Brandon situation is they gave him um what's it called, they they pumped fluids into him. What's that,
Mm-hmm.
IV?
The IV, yeah.
The IV, yeah. um they, you don't see that very often, and
Mm-hmm.
it's almost an unfair advantage now, because now he's like, he's rejuvenated, he's ready to go, he's got all these nutrients that he
Yeah, you
everyone
might have
else.
someone else who's like, maybe I was 10 minutes away
Exactly.
from being in the same position that he's in. Why don't I get this extra boost that could have put
Yeah,
me pretty farther ahead in terms of recovering from that?
exactly. Yeah, and it's kind of setting a bit of a dangerous precedent for Jeff to be willing to do that so quickly. Like, it really, I know Brandon was like, all, he was exhausted. That's what he was, but I don't, it didn't seem that serious. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see moving forward. But going back to the Bruce thing, yeah, it's interesting because I think they could have just had medical look at him, because Bruce was out of the challenge, right? So
Yeah, that's another thing.
they could have just pulled him off to the side and looked at him and done everything they did, um, and had the challenge kept going. And you give everyone a break, and you get everyone a time to think about what they have to do. So it's kind of like, I agree. I'm more in favor of continuing the challenge. But I get it's scary. Head injuries are always, you don't want to mess around with that. But I
Yeah, I
definitely
definitely
agree
want to
with
make it
you.
clear that Bruce's health is what's most important here, a
Yeah,
million percent. Like, there's no question about that, especially with the fact that his forehead was gushing out blood. That was pretty bad. And I understand, of course, that needed medical attention. It's just that that could have happened while the challenge was also going, and Bruce didn't have to be involved in the challenge anymore at all, like you said.
yeah. And so medical looks at Bruce. He's all good. Jeff says, "Bruce, call us in." What did you think of that?
What point are you referring to? When
When
after?
Jeff had Bruce say, "Survivor's
Oh,
ready."
oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't.
That
I'm not the biggest fan of that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Jeff likes to cater to certain players like that.
It's
It
like
reminded me of
it's
when
like
he had Suri say that the tribe has spoken.
yeah, yeah. That's
It
exactly.
was, I think in that case it was a little bit more earned for Suri, but yeah, I understand him wanting to give Bruce a little moment of relief and happiness to do something that he was probably be pretty excited for. But yeah, I thought it was a little weird. I didn't even remember it until you just said it. I was like, wait, what are
Yeah.
you talking about?
Yeah, that's gonna be Jeff's favorite moment. But so then after, when they start get going again, it's up to Carolyn to get the hoop over the ring, and she couldn't do it. And I gotta tell you, that was the embodiment of all my Survivor nightmares if I were ever to be on the show.
Exactly,
The first
exactly.
the first challenge, I mean, I don't want to say she single-handedly lost it for him, but she single-handedly lost it for him. Not
Yeah.
Luckily, it's not immunity challenge or anything, but man, I would be terrified. And you see her, she's like almost starts crying. She's like, "Oh my God, what is happening?" And that's
Yeah,
just
it's always
everything.
tough in those challenges where you can try over and over again, and you just you like every time it gets a little bit harder because you're losing energy. And you're just like, oh, like come on! You just see her like trying to get that ring up, and at the end she can only get it like halfway up, and she's just not able to do it. Everybody's passing her. It really sucks. It's I feel like the other Survivor nightmare that would have happened in that challenge is the Bruce thing. Nobody
Yeah,
wants to have
that's
a medical thing,
yup.
of course. That might be a little worse, actually. But yeah, the Survivor nightmare that I always think about is what Carolyn had to go through in that challenge. So I definitely feel for her, but it was great that it wasn't for immunity, so she got another chance, and that her tribe did end up winning the immunity challenge. So she was safe for a few more days, and we get to see more of Carolyn's crazy antics, which I'm totally here for.
And I do think that she will be a major character going forward and will make it pretty
Definitely.
far. And God, I hope so because man, do I love every scene that she's in. But speaking of Carolyn, she is actually on, or at least she feels like she is on the outs after Bruce gets evacuated. Also, now there's been three people who have been evacuated during the premiere, so they could do a returnee season where there's three captains. Just saying. You know,
Oh yeah, I think Bruce should be brought back
yeah.
100%. And I
Oh,
think I
100%.
think I think I heard something already about how he might have already been given for sure another chance. Like Jeff Probst might have confirmed that.
I
Like
mean,
he was gonna get another chance.
It seemed like Jeff loved him. I mean, he said, "You're a shining light." It,
Yeah, that was another thing that I thought, I get how Jeff
I
is very close to these people and he casted them and he wants them to feel good and he wants them to get a positive Survivor experience, but I thought that he did go a bit too hard positively for Bruce, more than
yeah,
what was
I get it.
warranted.
I get it. But yeah, it seemed like it did come out of a little bit of left field. But
Yeah, there was just a disconnect there because the audience hadn't gotten to know him at all. So we were not seeing these traits that Jeff was describing. And of course, Jeff is intimately familiar with this guy and his personality. So he knows these things. And of course, it must be really hard for him to watch him get pulled after being out there and, getting ready to play the game, how long the pre production process is, and then to finally get out
yeah,
there and have that happen so early. Jeff obviously had a lot to say and to feel about that, but the audience just doesn't have that. And so to push that on us, I understand that for Bruce, especially for Bruce's family watching at home, how they might want to see that. It just didn't necessarily resonate with us. And that's not a bad thing per se. It's just not perfect television, if that makes sense.
definitely makes sense to me. So we're talking about Survivor nightmares here. Kind of Survivor nightmare number three when Carolyn um is on the outs and it seems like nobody is going up to her. And you see her talking to okay, wait, is it Yam Yam or Jam Jam? Because I feel like I've heard it and seen it both ways.
Yeah, I think Jeff said it both ways,
Yeah,
actually. I know it's spelled with a Y, but I think it's kind of pronounced with a kind
yeah.
of a J.
I like Jam Jam, so for the podcast, I'll be calling him
Yeah.
Jam Jam. All right, so we see Carolyn talking to Jam Jam. He's like, I just want to go over there, but I don't want to be like that. I was like, and to the camera, and she's like, I know it's annoying. Blah. I love everything she does. I love her, everything she does. But yeah,
Yeah.
and she goes up to Helen, and you kind of see Helen go like, yeah, yeah, okay. How do you think Helen handled that whole situation?
Yeah, I think Helen handled it pretty well. I think Helen could always use Carolyn as either an ally or just a fake ally down the road. I think Carolyn, especially with her position that she's in now, feeling like she's on the outs, Helen should take advantage of that and say, hey, Carolyn, I'm here for you. I think these young people are going to be sticking together, which I think we've seen from that tribe, but, I'm going to stick with you and Yam Yam. I think any one of these young people could pull that card for Carolyn and Yam Yam. Now that Bruce is gone and the young people have the majority, any one of them could say, I'm going to be with Carolyn and Yam Yam and start to play both sides, which sometimes the guy in the middle of the road gets run over, as Aubrey said, but sometimes I think more often than not, the middle of the road position early on in a tribe can be the better position to take as long as you don't get caught. So like if I were Helen or Sarah or Carson, especially Carson, I don't know why, but I feel like Carson and Carolyn could have a great bond. If I was in any of their spots, I would definitely try to hook up with Carolyn, especially because she doesn't seem to be very schemy. She's obviously a fan of the game. She is an org player. She plays Roblox. I
Yup.
think that is so freaking awesome. That is like the coolest thing
That's
ever.
so
Like she is
awesome.
out here representing all of us who are just like in this desperate online survivor community who just want nothing more to get on the season. So in my eyes, she's kind of like the voice of the audience this season. So we get to live vicariously through her. So she's just great. I mean, if I were out there and if I were one of these young people, why would I want to get rid of her? So I'm thinking I'm going to placate her as much as possible. I'm going to calm her down if she's feeling paranoid. I'm going to tell her, hey, Carson wants to work with you. Carson told me that he likes you. Sarah told me that she thinks you're really fine, whatever, whatever. I think if you just tell Carolyn the right things, if you're in Helen Carson or Sarah's spot, you could easily have her as a pocket ally in addition to the other young people. And I guess that leaves Yam Yam or Jam Jam on the outs. But I think that he's such a good personality that he could also blend in with these young people, and he'll have an easy in with Carolyn being the two older people. And I think they can also get along in the sense that they have really positive personalities. They're both really outgoing. So if some of these other people start to get a little bit more introverted or whatever, and they're not, say they just don't want to deal with Carolyn for a day, I think Jam Jam could be like, hey, Carolyn, let's go on a walk. Let's talk for a while. I think I can hang out with you. So I think Carolyn actually is in she maybe not the best spot right now just because she hasn't gotten to know people yet, but she could find herself in a much better spot.
Definitely. It sucks to think that somebody on that tribe's gonna have to go. Especially considering
Mm-hmm.
they seem very much like not the strongest of the three tribes. So it'll be
Yeah,
interesting to
Bruce
see.
was definitely the
Yeah,
strongest one there. So that's
he was like the
yikes.
only, I mean, hey, you got Tom Holland Spider-Man though. And speaking of Carolyn and wanting to form a relationship, maybe Carson never had a relationship before. I think Carolyn's single, so
Oh my God.
just throwing it out there.
That would be the funniest showmance ever. Honestly, I'm here for it.
But speaking
Carson getting a
of
little cougar action.
speaking of funny showmances, though, it seems like Matt and Franny are gonna get together next episode. And oh my God, I love both of them. They're so funny. They're so awesome. Um, every Matt and Franny, every time they're on screen, it's like Carol. It's almost like this whole cast, but I just love them. They're so funny. Matt open about his anxiety and all that. I know he seems like another person. Well, both them too, both that the community is really gonna attach to and like. So, what do you think of that potential showmance?
Oh, I love it. I mean, Franny and Matt, they're just so like cute and like nerdy and geeky,
Yeah.
but they're like super funny, and I just love the way they interact with each other. It's like a Christian and Gabby kind of vibe, but with more of a showmance on the horizon. I think that's just gonna add a whole nother layer to the dynamic, and it's gonna be super fun to watch. I think people have been saying that Franny is like Helen, which I see it, and Matt kind of looks like hi to me. But those are two characters who I really liked in their respective seasons. So, maybe these are like the upgraded versions. And I've also got the Kristen and Gabby thing. And we haven't had a showmance in a while since what?
It's
Like,
been a while. I don't
was
know.
it
When was the
Jessica and
last one?
Cole on HHH? I think that might have been the last one.
Was that? I mean, because
I
we're
mean,
not counting
technically,
Dan and Kara, right? That wasn't.
yeah, no. I mean, in Dan's mind it was. I don't think Kara thought it was.
And Alex doesn't exist, so him and Kara don't. He's been scrubbed from Survivor, so.
Oh my God.
But yeah, it's definitely. I think it's always fun to see showmances. I except for maybe what was it, Keith and Whitney? Every other
Yeah.
showmance is good. Yeah,
Yeah.
Go
It's
ahead.
like a taste of Big Brother almost. Like I think Big Brother goes overboard with showmances. We get way too many of those, and they seem like inauthentic. Like every player is just going and asking for a showmance. But with Survivor, it's a different game where people don't go in wanting to hook up and have like this young, like hot girl summer, hot guy summer type of thing. They just, they're there to actually play the game, play strategically, and make money and survive. So the fact that they would end up in a showmance anyway makes it more interesting.
Definitely, definitely. So when we get back to camp, we get these awesome cinematic shots of the jungle with the sick, intense music playing, and we come up upon the bird cage. And the bird
Hmm.
cage has been something I've been looking forward to for a while since the premiere preview or whenever it was announced that the bird cage is going to be in there. But so far, I think it's been delivering already. We've gotten a lot of paranoia from it. How what do you think of the birdcage and how and the effect it's had on the players so far?
I really appreciate that they've been finding different ways to manage idols throughout the new era so far. I was a huge fan of the Beats twist in 43, where
Mhm.
getting an idol relied more on the social game more than anything, rather than just, a random hunt through the woods. And this one is like that, where you still have to find something, but you have to be social in your execution of what you do with what you find. So
Mhm.
Brandon, uh, getting caught by Maddie, and that was a whole awkward moment in its own.
That
But
was yeah. The stretch.
that would have been so much less complicated without the birdcage thing. So I really appreciate that that adds a whole different layer of the strategy for when you find an idol. And I think it's super interesting. I can't wait to see how these other tribes deal with it. But with Brandon, I think it's funny that he thought it was actually going to be something to benefit the tribe. Or at least it seemed like he thought that's what it was going to be. And when Maddie was saying, maybe we should just keep it to ourselves, the fact that he just instantly
He
turned it into telling
just
everyone was like, damn, Maddie,
she
what'd
was
you
so
do to this guy?
surprised
Why
by
does he
that.
not want to work with you?
The look on
But
her
then
face when she said that.
yeah, so that was kind of a bad omen for her for how the rest of the premiere was going to turn out. But then Brandon goes and opens and he gets this idol and he's like, well, shit, now I got this
Yeah.
thing that everybody knows about. So that was, pretty hard to deal with, but he was able to actually get rid of it at the first tribal council, which was totally unexpected. So I think he maneuvered around that in a way that was even he wasn't planning to do. So I think overall it just adds confusion to people's games and it makes it harder for people to decide what to do. It adds strained relationships earlier on than they might be strained otherwise. So I'm a huge fan of it.
Definitely, yeah. So how do you think Brandon handled that whole situation? Because it's interesting because he was like he at first he didn't want to tell anybody, and if he didn't know Maddie suspected anything, he wouldn't have told anybody. But then as soon as Maddie's like, "Should we tell him?" He's like, "Oh, I know I can't trust her now," and he immediately yells like, "Hey, I found it!" And Maddie's like, "Okay, I guess we're doing that now."
Yeah,
So
it
do
was
you
so
think?
awkward the way he like tried to half hide it at first.
Yeah, he does the stretch and he's like, and then you just see Maddie go like, yeah. But do you think he made the right call on telling everybody?
Yes, just because of the way it happened to work out in the premiere. But, I'm still, like I said, I'm interested to see how these other tribes do it because if you can find a way to not tell anyone and reach into that cage and grab it and like, what would you do? Replace it like Indiana Jones or something?
Yeah,
Like get like a bag of dirt and put it in there. I guess you could do that. So if he were to find a way to do that, that might have been better. But then he also, with the way that this tribal went down, he would have had to either play it or go home. And if he played it, then he wouldn't have that. the fact that he told everybody about the idol publicly and made it seem like he was trying to benefit the tribe with the birdcage thing, he wouldn't have that angle. So it would just look like he found an idol in the woods early on, or he would have to admit to the whole cage thing, or however he would do it. It would make him look more schemy, I guess. Whereas with the way he did it in this episode, it looked like to me that he was trying to benefit the tribe, or at least he could portray it to the tribe that way.
Yeah, definitely. I think the only person who would suspect otherwise is Maddie because she kind of
Mm-hmm.
saw him try to hide it, and now she's gone. So, but what do you think of Maddie as a first boot? Because honestly, I kind of think she just got screwed being next to Brandon when he found it.
Oh yeah, she definitely got screwed. I'd like to hear more about why Brandon didn't trust her, but it definitely seems like he had some reason to, or at least some reason in his mind to just not trust her. And I think she even said in confessional, like, he just doesn't want to work with me. And I
Yeah.
thought that was really interesting as well. The fact that we had someone flat out say that in confessional. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, you don't really see this early, just two people who both are like, yeah, I really kind of don't want to work with this person.
Yeah, and it's not like they
But
had a fight either or some
yeah,
reason to kind of clash.
it's
So
very
yeah, I don't
interesting.
know. But yeah, I do agree she got a bit screwed. I appreciate that she was out there playing hard, but I don't think that targeting Brandon was the right move at the first tribal council. I just don't. And so the fact that she pushed for that kind of dug her own grave a little bit, even though she did get screwed by for sure Jamie and Matthew playing the shot in the dark, which that just completely blew up her game because it revealed to Brandon that they had some plan that they felt safe with. So if they hadn't done that, I you do you really think that Brandon wouldn't have played the idol, or do you think he might have?
But see, I don't know because part of me thinks he might have played it no matter what, just because he seems like that, everybody knows about it. It's just a target. Nothing good comes from it. I'm just gonna get rid of it and move forward. Um, but I don't know. I think he might have been pretty confident. Had nobody played their shot in the dark, I think there's a good chance he goes home. And it's interesting. Maddie was pushing really hard for him, and I get it. Like he has the idol, but and they did. I guess they're not. She did. They both knew that they weren't going to work together. It sounded like. So I guess it makes sense. You have somebody who you're not going to work with. They have the idol. Let's try and get him out while hopefully they're not suspecting it. But I don't know. I mean, he's your biggest guy in the challenge, and the challenges have been brutal so far. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
immunity challenge would require all the strength you can need. So, um, I don't know if it was the best idea, but she was pushing hard. She was like, I thought it was funny that she when she was campaigning, she called him the Godfather, and I'm like,
That was so out of left
yeah,
field.
yeah. She's like, he's controlling everything. Like, there hasn't even
Like
been a
what?
single vote yet. What has he controlled? Just
Yeah.
because he has the
So
idol?
that is so weird. So there's definitely this interesting dichotomy where she definitely was screwed by the actions of her tribe mates, but she was also screwed by herself for targeting Brandon in the first place, which
Definitely.
I just don't think was the smartest move at all. And Kane said this in his confessional. It was just too early to target Brandon. Kane also got screwed, not nearly as bad, but he
But
was forced to lay his vote down on someone who he didn't want to vote for at all. And now he's the only person left on the tribe who actually did vote for that person. So it's like,
he
man, you got a lot of cleaning up to do.
he even said, "I don't want to vote for Brandon just for him to whip out an idol, and I don't want to be on the wrong side of that." And now he's the only one who's on the wrong side of that.
Tragic
Uh,
foreshadowing is what that is.
and Brandon did say before, I think this vote is going to reveal a lot about who you can trust. So hopefully he won't take
Mm-hmm.
that too hard. I do, Kane's another person I love. I feel like I'll just go down the list of the cast and say I love everybody, but it's honestly kind of feels like that.
Yeah, it's the same
Yeah,
as last season, honestly. Like I was just saying, I love everyone. I love all the
yeah,
stories. And we haven't, that reminds me actually, we have not gotten like the emotional backstories so far
that's
this season
right.
that we
We
had
did
last
get
season.
who did we get? We got one.
We got, I think, Matthew G talking about how he
That's
grew up
right.
like exploring because of his mom, I think, and then how he left his, was it husband and daughter behind?
Yeah, and dog maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, just leaving
Yeah.
his family behind. I think we did get a little bit from Carson about his weight gain and stuff. Tom
Yeah,
Holland
but that
gaining.
wasn't
I mean, that's
sad.
insane. Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't. Yeah,
And that's what I like is I mean last season it was okay. It was okay to have some of the sad stuff like with Cody's friend and Noel's leg and everything, but it got a
it's
little bit
every
yeah.
person. I mean,
I
even
think
like Cody's not really a character you need to have that for. Like he's kind of the comic
yeah.
relief, like fun-loving guy. You don't
Hmm.
really need to work that story. I mean, I guess it explains his lifestyle a little bit, but yeah, it got a little much last season, and I'm glad they're cutting it down a little bit.
Like as the audience watching Survivor, we're not always trying to find like people who are overcoming adversity similar to us be on the show. We usually just want to see people who we enjoy and people who we like and people who we can find ourselves in via the traits that they have and not just whatever has happened to them in the past. And so I remember commenting on how Noelle's story last season was so much centered around her leg, but she was really much bigger than that. And she was a huge strategic force on the season. She was someone who everybody really liked. She was a great player. And so it kind of sucked to have her almost diminished to that sob story in her presence for what the producers wanted to give her screen time. So I think it's nice to let these players just be themselves and not have to worry about who has the
Yeah,
saddest backstory.
definitely. I think it's like a lot of the producers just they wanted to force the issue of people liking the cast, and it seems like now
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of just trusting it more. Like they know the cast is good, and we're gonna like them, so just show them, just let them be them. Don't try and force
Yeah.
these backstories to get people to like them.
Yeah, I think one thing they did learn from Cody last season was that the audience wants to see humor and we want to see people having fun out there. We don't want it to be
Yep.
miserable all the time. Like season 41 was miserable, season 42 had some miserable moments, and of course season 43 was more of a lighthearted season for the cast, but for us, we were just getting the sob story after sob story after sob story. So it's nice to see more of a lighter tone mixed in with the still epic, still intense, still dark at times tone that we've been getting this season. It's more of a mixed bag, and that makes it more exciting and more dramatic.
Yeah. And thinking of the drama of the season, what do you think of the theme? Because I love it. I love the chess set. I love the immunity, sword and shield. I love everything. I
Oh
hope
yeah,
there's more challenges themed after that, and that I hope they lean into it more.
yeah. The chess set I think is one of the coolest things ever. I wanted to text you immediately when I saw that, but I knew that you hadn't seen the episode yet, so I was like, oh man, I can't wait to talk about this because you're a huge chess player.
Yeah.
And Survivor as a game is so much related to the game of chess that it's just so fitting. I can't believe they haven't done it before. It's perfect.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
Tribal Council as a whole is awesome. I love the huge gargoyle in the background. I love the medieval theme, the gothic archways. It's gorgeous. And I love when a season really commits to a theme. Like early on in Survivor, we had Pearl Islands with the pirate theme. It feels like they haven't done stuff like that as much recently, but the fact that they're kind of leaning more into that, I love it. And it makes they haven't like explicitly said anything about this season being medieval themed, but we get to pick up on that through the art design choices that the art department has made. And I think it's super cool. I love the artistic part of Survivor. I love seeing all these nuances in the themes that they go for each season. And this Tribal Council is beautiful. I think everything they've done so far with the sword and shield and the chess set and everything has been a great take on the medieval theme and the strategy aspect of Survivor. And yeah, it's really cool.
Definitely. And I think theming has been something that the more recent seasons of Survivor have really been missing. I mean, think about like Pearl Islands with the pirate theme, where you have characters
Mm-hmm.
like embracing it, like Rupert stealing stuff, and all that,
Exactly.
and China with all these challenges based around it, all around the culture of the area. I know you can't have that anymore because you're not traveling to different areas, but I like how they're trying to come up with the theme even still being in Fiji, and I think it makes the season a lot better, a lot more memorable, a lot more distinguishable from other seasons. Like
Yeah.
I really liked 43. I love it more than most people do, I'd say. But in my mind, it's still harder to distinguish than from like itself from a season like from 42 and 41 than like China is or like even like Cambodia, anything. And
Yeah.
I think that's really good for a season to have something that makes it memorable.
Yeah, I mean, when they started to really stay in Fiji at first, like with 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, I thought they did a little bit better of a job at having each season feel kind of aesthetically distinct from the ones before and after it. Like Ghost Island was very like dark and purple and ominous, and then David versus Goliath was all like gladiatorial and everything was made of stone, and then 38 was all like abandoned shipwreck and like the Chinese trading ships or whatever, like with salt trade. I don't know. Um, and so with 41 and 42 and 43, I think they kind of slipped up on that a little bit where it was kind of feeling a bit samey. And now with 44, they've gone back into what I said is the medieval theme, which I really
Mhm.
like, and it helps to set it apart and make the season feel a lot much more interesting and creative.
Definitely. So something that we haven't talked about yet that I want to talk about is this season's version of Shipwheel Island. So we
Mm.
saw three different people go and three very different reactions to their getting picked to go. So we saw Carolyn really want to go and get very upset when Jam Jam was like, I want to go too, hon. So they ended up picking straws. And she was very disappointed, but Sarah got to go. And then we see Matt, the very next person to get picked. He's like, I drew the short stick. He was like, you never want to be separated. He was very disappointed to be going. And then we saw Lauren rig the game of rocks so that she could get to go. Um, so they all go there. They each go on their separate ways. And again, we saw three different things happen. We saw Matt lose both of his votes, two votes. Lauren gets it on the first try, and Sarah loses one and then gets another advantage. So Lauren's advantage is the bank a vote, which she used already. So she has two votes, or she has an extra vote that she can use whenever she wants. And then Sarah has, I'm not, do you know what it's called?
The inheritance advantage.
Inheritance advantage. So it's kind of similar to knowledge is power, right? You just
Hmm.
play it before. You have to play it before, right? I mean, I'm sure, because otherwise that'd be insanely overpowered. So you have
Yeah,
to,
I'm not 100% sure how it works, but I think you play it when you're voting.
yeah. Because if you could just wait till after, then I mean, I feel like that's like
Yeah, that would just be
too
dumb.
easy. Yeah. So you play it before, and you get any advantage that is played, right? Not just idols.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that the advantage does get counted for the person who actually plays it. And then after tribal, it just goes to
Really?
her.
Oh, okay.
That's what I don't know. I don't know. I'm not
That's
sure,
not
but
how I
that's what I
took
would
it
think.
originally.
So you're saying that she plays it when they vote, and then someone stands up to play an idol, and then or then Jeff reaches into the urn and says, "And this is the inheritance advantage."
Yeah.
Is that what would happen? You think like something like that, where it would
That's
just go
what
straight to her?
that's what I thought, but like I don't know, because like what if there's multiple things that are played, you know? Does she get all of them? I don't. It's a bit
Yeah.
unclear. I don't know.
See, I think she would get all of them just after they're played. Like, say two people play idols on themselves, then they both are safe, and then she just gets both those idols afterwards. So I think it's a
It would
little
make
bit
sense.
overpowered if a lot of people play advantages, but she still has to guess for it. So that
Yeah,
makes
that's
it
the
not
thing.
completely overpowered.
That's why I could see if she gets everything because it kind of balances out the fact that she actually does have to guess right. And I don't. So do we know if they're hiding other idols besides the birdcage idols?
I don't think so. I think if they were, that would be pretty bad.
Yeah. So I don't know how many idols are going to be played, but it does seem like I don't know. It seems like an okay advance. I think the bank of vote seems better though. What do you think?
Yeah, the bank vote is much more interesting and it's way less overpowered, however you slice it. It's you have to actually give something up and then you get something and it's that simple. It's not like you're not nullifying anybody's idols, you're not stealing people's stuff. It's just you take a risk and you get a reward for it. And I thought Lauren played it absolutely perfectly. Um, because she told people that she lost her vote and then she didn't vote at tribal, so she can still run with that lie that she
Yeah.
just lost her vote.
Mhm.
And now she has this extra vote which she doesn't have to play immediately or tell anyone about, so it's just a complete advantage in her pocket that nobody knows about. It's perfect.
Yeah, definitely. I think she did kind of dodge a bullet there with okay, I need help with names. Who told Matthew that
I think it was Claire. I think you're
Claire,
thinking
okay,
of
yeah. I knew I
Claire.
had yeah, okay, yeah. It's
Yeah, I know what you're talking about at the challenge.
first episode. We got a ways to go. But yeah, so she did kind of dodge a bullet there with Claire telling Matthew that, Matt brought his thing back. And Matthew got, I think he was kind of convinced that Claire was lying to them and he wanted to vote her out. So I think, I think or she, Lauren dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, she definitely did because Claire could have sunk her game immediately. But first of all, that was really smart for Claire. I think it might be a little bit much so early in the game, but it
I
establishes trust with someone who's on a different tribe, so you can work with that without having to go on
definitely.
a journey. It's taking the game into your own hands. I think that's something that if she were to make the end, she could easily use that either like if someone asked her like what was your most subtle move or how could you prove that you were playing or taking every opportunity you possibly could have, she could really say, hey, I took this opportunity to just throw someone under the bus when I didn't have to, and I got to expose the truth a little bit without getting any blood on my hands. So I thought it was great for her, but like you said, Lauren did dodge that bullet because she really didn't vote.
Yeah, definitely. And I think anytime you can get a connection with somebody on another tribe, that's a good thing for sure.
Hmm.
Um, so what do we think about obviously we know that Lauren lied and got away with it and she's in a great position. What do we think about Matt kind of half truthing it then Sarah lying about it, saying that she just doesn't know yet?
I think for Matt, it kind of makes sense for the short term, but it's not a smart play for the long term because, of course, people are going to figure that out. Um, Hopefully he doesn't get it put into a position where everybody's like, "Hey, we really need your vote at this second tribal council
Yeah.
you go to." But man, it really sucks that he lost two votes. I can't
Yeah.
believe that, especially because on Shipwheel Island they were actually forced to participate in this game, which I thought was pretty interesting. So you either have to lose one vote and get an advantage, or you lose two votes, or you just get an advantage. Am I saying that right?
I think you got it right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of weird, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it would be a zillion times better if production just let them abstain from playing the game at all, because on the original Shipwheel Island, you could just choose not to risk your vote, right? So it was like
Mhm.
nothing happened. So with this, it's like it's not as much risk versus reward. It's just you have to take a risk and you might get a reward or you might just get screwed like Matt did. So I definitely feel for him because I don't think he should have had to do that at all. I think he should have just, and I think he would
Yeah.
have if he had been given the opportunity not to play or not to
I
play
think so
second.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think they should have the opportunity not to play. Um, yeah, hopefully he's not a target because I mean him and Franny are together and he doesn't have any votes or something like that. Because like I said, I love him. Um,
Yeah,
But
let's see if they can keep this showmance under wraps for once.
but speaking of Matt, someone who we haven't talked about much is Matthew, who has gotten a lot of screen time so far. We saw his very questionable climbing of rocks. Um, but he does seem like he's going to be a force in this game. And I want to hear what you think about this because I think that his playing of the shot in the dark was a strategic move on his part that he thought out. Basically, that he didn't want to commit to voting either way. And like Jamie said, his vote didn't matter. So just, you know, get off scot free with no blood on your hands. I think that's what he wanted to do. And as the kicker to that, maybe you look like someone who doesn't really know the game that well, just playing the shot in the
Hmm.
dark. That's how I mean, I would want to come off that way. I remember War Dog talking about how he wanted to come off like the idiot who was just there for the adventure. And
Definitely,
Matthew's
definitely.
out there climbing rocks and stuff. Maybe that's how he's coming off. So, but I definitely think it had its strategic merits.
Yeah, I think Matthew got a little bit too excited there early on with the climbing of the rock. I think I hate to say it, but I feel like he might have been thinking about screen time in that moment. Like, hey, maybe they'll show me on camera climbing this rock, and it'll be like this big cinematic moment for all the audience at home. And then it just totally backfired on him, and that was rough. I mean, falling onto
That,
rocks just
yeah.
that must hurt, and the fact he dislocated his shoulder, he had a Stephanie LaGrossa moment. Uh,
Second dislocated shoulder in the premiere,
yeah, that's crazy.
yeah.
And then he cut his foot. It was
Yeah,
but
it
his
was,
arm in a sling. I think if he had known that Bruce was medevaced at that time, which he did not know that Bruce was technically out of the game at that point. If he
yeah.
had known that, I think he might have been a little bit more careful.
That might have been a little bit of a reality check, sobered him up a
Yeah.
little bit.
But yeah, luckily the fall I think was able to sober him up, like you said, without too much damage. And he got lucky with the fact that uh their tribe had more people because of Bruce's medevac, so they had to sit someone out at the first challenge.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty lucky.
that was lucky.
Uh, um, but yeah, he's pretty cool. I think he could definitely be a force on the season. He seems to have a good head on his shoulders strategically, and that play with the shot in the dark, that was pretty smart actually because he did not have to show loyalty to any side. So whether or not Brandon played the idol made no difference because if Maddie stayed, she might have been a little bit mad, but she couldn't have blamed it because he didn't vote her. And if Brandon stayed, which he did, he didn't vote him. So it's perfect.
Yep.
And it screws Kane, unfortunately, even more. Because I think if Kane had known about Matthew planning to play the shot in the dark, Kane would have actually also played his. And then it would
Oh,
have
that's
literally
interesting.
just been Brandon versus Maddie. And everybody else is just like, hey, let's let you two hash it out. We're all not
1v1.
going to vote. Literally 1v1. Now I kind of wish
Nuketown
that's what we'd
1v1,
gotten. Man, that would have been awesome. But yeah, sadly, Kane was not enlightened to that plan. And so he was forced to show his cards in the worst way possible. So we'll see how that goes. But Matthew definitely has an upper hand now, so he can slide himself into that middle position. And we'll see how the tribe dynamics change after that vote. I'm definitely really interested to see how the night went after that tribal council. But I think Kane is definitely in the worst position there, and then Matthew might be in the best because actually Brandon is in the best because I don't think he'll get targeted being the strongest person on that tribe, and the fact that he already got targeted and used his idol already, so that's a nullified threat. There's no really reason to be looking at Brandon right now, so I think
Yeah.
those two are pretty good, and then Kane, man, gotta worry.
I hope he figures it out because I like him.
Yeah, same. I do too. And oh, and Jamie. I forgot about Jamie, but she's got a lot of work to do too.
Yeah,
What do you think about her move?
I'm not sure that she was thinking about it the same way that Matthew was. I don't know. I, it's interesting. It's the first successful shot in the dark is Jamie the Yogi. Um,
And I'm
It's
pretty disappointed by that, to be honest. Why couldn't
I
we have Sydney be the first successful shot in the dark? Like, come on, people.
I was hoping when they both played it that they both weren't safe because then it would increase in chances we get it safe on like an actual where it actually matters.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, I'm not sure really what she's thinking. I think she just wanted to use it or just to try and be safe. Not sure. Um, she said, my vote doesn't matter. So I'm not completely sure. I don't know. I like Jamie, but she seems like kind of like a little bit overwhelmed by the game. I don't know. I'm not sure if she's gonna be the biggest strategic mastermind of the season, but she does seem like a fun character.
Yeah, I think if there's anyone who I'm kind of counting out at this point, it's her, which sucks
Yeah,
because I do like her, but I mean, I like everyone. I never like to say that I don't like someone on Survivor, but she definitely does not seem to be the biggest strategic player, and she's fun, but there's other personalities that I like more, actually. So,
yeah, definitely. It's tough because the cast is going so good so far too.
yeah, I definitely don't mean that against her in any way,
Yeah.
just not my favorite. So, I'm not super hyped about that being the first ever successful shot in the dark for sure.
Yeah. But now there's a reason to remember Jamie, so go down in Survivor history,
Yeah, good for
Like a
her. I mean,
pro.
good for her.
Yeah, definitely. So you got anything else on the premiere?
Um, no, I like Danny. I'm really nervous for
Oh
Danny
yeah, we
because
haven't
he
talked.
seemed, yeah, I don't think we mentioned him at all. But
No, but
uh,
he's really funny. He's like, I want to see what's in it. What I don't know what he said, but he just said he's really funny. I like him. He seems like a cool guy.
he's
Uh,
adorable. I would love to hang out with him.
he seems like really like it's weird to call a firefighter innocent, but he kind of has that
Yeah, he's
innocent kind of
sweet, just
yeah,
sweet.
innocent sweetness to him. Yeah.
Yeah, so he seems kind of like the underdog on that Green Tribe, but I'd love to see him pull through it and make some allies. Maybe he could be the third wheel to that showmance.
Yep.
He can be Matt's wingman. God, I would love to see that.
Oh, that'd be so awesome. Him trying to like hype him up. That'd be awesome.
But yeah, I feel like the Green Tribe was the least visible tribe in the premiere, so maybe we'll get some more drama from them in the future. But Heidi is also on that tribe, and we didn't mention her, I don't think, so far. She's pretty good. I think she's got the survival
Yeah,
aspect down. I think she comes off a little bit brainy to me, so maybe people will see her as more of a strategic threat early on. But if she can squeeze into the merge, I think she can maybe make some more plans down the line, depending on the connections that she's able to build.
definitely. I think her key is making the merge. I think once she makes the merge, she
Hmm.
can thrive for sure.
And then let's see, Lauren, I think is giving me kind of villain vibes. I think she could develop into the main strategic villain who's not afraid to pull any punches.
Kind of reminds me of
So she's pretty cool.
Drea a little
Yeah,
bit, and she's starting to stack those advantages. So starts with one.
yeah. Who else? Yam Yam is super fun.
Uh,
Except the episode title, I don't think we talked about that. I can't wait to
can't wait
see
to see Jeff.
Jeff. That
This
seemed a
is
little
true.
bit narcissistic on Jeff's part to pick that as the episode title. Like, I'm sure there's plenty of things that these
I
guys are
did.
excited to see, Jeff. It's not all about you. I feel like
Oh
I've been
man.
harping on Jeff a lot in these
Yeah.
podcasts.
We love you, and we know you're listening, Jeff, and we love you. So.
Yeah, for anyone wondering, by the way, this is not the official Survivor podcast. I think we are on fire, though.
Have you haven't checked it out, have you? Or have
No,
you?
I have
No.
not. And frankly, I don't care, and I
Is it
probably
because
won't.
it's not on YouTube, right? I
I
don't
don't know. But I'll
I
stick
looked
with
for it, but
our
it
Hap
wasn't
and the
there.
Survivor Specialists.
Yeah.
Those are my Survivor podcasts and the Survivor Bros now.
Yep, the Survivor Bros. Who needs the On Fire podcast?
Yeah, he's got a whole show. He's got enough and time in the spotlight.
We're coming though. We're gonna take his viewers.
Yeah.
Definitely though, a fun cast. It looks like we're gonna have a great season moving forward. Um, look forward to a lot of fun coming up on the podcast. I want to thank everybody for watching. Um, and be on the lookout for that Survivor 43 retrospective. And tune in next week for our breakdown of episode 2 of Survivor 44. We hope you all join us, but until then, thanks for watching and keep talking Survivor, bros.